You're here on a crazy night.
Yes, I can see that.
This absolutely silly.
Bizarre.
Bizarre.
Yes.
How are you?
Good. I'm fine.
How have you been?
Just fine. How have you been?
What is going on here? Who is this guy? What's happening? Why is he still here? I don't understand. You were acting so weird, and you don't even look us in the face. You're acting so weird.
He's my boyfriend, Mom.
Your boyfriend?
Yes. I'm gay.
I'm gay too.
I am also gay.
Not many stars in Hollywood have ever shone as brightly as Sally Field. For more than 60 years, she was seen as America's sweetheart, a woman whose charm, warmth, and talent made her unforgettable. She has won 2 Academy Awards along with many other honors and created some of the most memorable characters ever seen on screen. But like many stars, the story behind the spotlight is more complicated. Behind her famous smile, Sally carried struggles that the public rarely saw. She spoke openly in later years about the difficulties she went through, including troubled relationships and the emotional scars that followed her from childhood. Now, she's 78 years old, and the life she lives is just sad. This is the story of Sally Field.
Holy minestrone!
Sally Field was born in Pasadena, California, into a world that already had one foot in show business. Her mother, Margaret Field, was an actress, and her father was an Army officer. When her parents divorced, her mother later married actor and stuntman Jock Mahoney, which meant that film sets and the entertainment industry were never far from her life. With this kind of background, it almost seemed like Sally was destined to end up in front of the camera. Her big break came in 1965 when she was only 18 years old. She landed the role of Gidget, the cheerful, surf-loving teenager in the sitcom Gidget. Almost overnight, America fell in love with her. She had that perfect girl-next-door look, wholesome, fun, and full of energy. Even though the show only lasted for 1 season, it made her a star and gave her a face that people instantly recognized. But the sweet, innocent image that made her famous quickly turned into a kind of trap. Hollywood liked her as the bubbly, wholesome girl and wanted to keep her there. Not long after Gidget, she was cast as Sister Bertrille in The Flying Nun.
You see, one of the many things we didn't know about Sister Bertrille was that she only weighed 90 pounds.
For 3 seasons, audiences watched her play a quirky nun whose habit allowed her to fly. The show was silly and lighthearted, but Sally hated the role. Years later, she admitted, "I was trying to figure out who I was, but I knew who I wasn't, a flying nun." That role created a problem for her. The industry loved the image, but it made it almost impossible for people to see her as a serious actress. She felt boxed in, struggling with the fact that the world only wanted her to play one type of character. Behind the scenes, Sally was frustrated and unhappy. She began to feel depressed and unsure of who she was, not just as an actress, but as a person. It was during her time on The Flying Nun that she found a way to break free. Her co-star, Madeline Sherwood, encouraged her to join the Actors Studio, a famous training ground for serious performers. Sally took the advice and began studying in secret with the legendary acting teacher Lee Strasberg. He became not just her teacher, but also her mentor. Under his guidance, she learned how to channel her own emotions, fears, and experiences into her acting. Years later, Sally would say that Strasberg changed her life. He gave her the tools to break out of the cute and sweet box and start becoming the powerful, dramatic actress she always wanted to be. This was the turning point in her career, the moment when Sally Field began to take control of her craft and fight to be taken seriously in Hollywood. Sally Field's fight to be taken seriously was not easy. In fact, it was brutal. She remembered auditioning for the 1976 film Stay Hungry and overhearing the director in the next room shouting at the casting agent. He couldn't believe they had wasted his time by letting the flying nun even try out for the part. That was the image that haunted her. No matter what she did, people only saw the silly nun who could fly. This kind of rejection was constant in her early career. Casting directors, agents, and producers dismissed her again and again. One agent even told her to her face that she simply wasn't good enough for movies. Sally's reply was short and fierce. "You're fired." That moment of defiance showed the spirit that would carry her forward, the same determination that had driven her to study with Lee Strasberg. She refused to let Hollywood decide what she could or couldn't be. Her breakthrough came in 1976 with the television movie Sybil. In it, she played a young woman struggling with dissociative identity disorder, a condition then little understood by the public. The role was complex, emotional, and incredibly demanding. Sally threw herself into it completely, using the skills Strasberg had taught her to tap into her own fears and pain. The result was astonishing. Critics were stunned, audiences were moved, and for the first time Hollywood had no choice but to see her as a serious actress. Sybil earned her an Emmy Award and shattered the image of the flying nun forever. With that success, the door finally opened. What followed was a string of roles that proved she was not just talented, she was unforgettable. She starred alongside Burt Reynolds in the blockbuster hit Smokey and the Bandit. The movie was lighthearted and fun, and it made her a household name again, but for a completely different reason this time. Off-screen, it also began her on-again, off-again relationship with Reynolds, a romance that lasted for years and brought both passion and heartache. Then came Norma Ray in 1979, the role that would change everything.
You ain't getting any sleep. I ain't getting any sleep. We gotta get to work in the morning.
I got 100 calls to make tonight.
Is that going on our phone bill?
You can take it out of my paycheck, right?
Damn, milk is sour.
Sally played a young factory worker who becomes a union organizer, standing up against poor working conditions. It was the perfect role for her, tough, emotional, and deeply human. The performance was raw and powerful, showing every ounce of her fighting spirit. It won her the Academy Award for Best Actress, the highest recognition in her field. But even this victory carried some sadness. At the time, Burt Reynolds reportedly doubted whether she could win and refused to attend the Oscars with her. While the world was finally celebrating her as one of the greatest actresses of her generation, the man she loved didn't stand beside her. Her second Oscar win, 5 years later, for Places in the Heart, gave us one of the most famous and misunderstood lines in Oscar history. Clutching her award, she said with raw emotion, "I can't deny the fact that you like me right now, you like me." People often misquote and mock it, but it was a vulnerable, achingly honest reaction from a woman who had spent nearly 2 decades fighting for respect in an industry that had tried to keep her in a box. Throughout the 80s and 90s, she gave us one unforgettable performance after another, showing incredible range in films like Steel Magnolias, Forrest Gump, and Mrs. Doubtfire. On screen, she seemed invincible. Her energy was boundless, her spirit unbreakable. She was a symbol of strength. But as she entered her 50s, a silent health challenge was on the horizon, one that would force her to find a new and even more profound kind of strength. The difference between Sally Field's public image and her private health struggles could not have been greater. To the world, she looked like the picture of vitality. She was energetic, active, and always seemed young at heart. She didn't smoke. She kept herself fit. And she had even been taking calcium for years, convinced she was doing everything right to protect her health. In many ways, she seemed like the poster child for healthy living. But just before her 60th birthday, everything she believed about her health was shaken. In 2005, during what was supposed to be a routine checkup, a bone density test revealed shocking news. Sally had osteoporosis.
Sally, do you wish you'd known about osteoporosis just in general when you were much younger? Would it have changed your life in terms of what exercise and activities you would have done?
In reality, I was a very good girl.
The condition is often called the silent disease because it weakens bones without obvious symptoms. Until one day, a simple fall or even a small movement can cause a serious fracture. For Sally, the diagnosis came as a complete surprise. I had always eaten right. I had always exercised. I tried to be a good girl all the way down the line, but it was going to get me, she admitted later. To her, the diagnosis felt like a betrayal. Despite her best efforts, the disease had quietly taken hold. Osteoporosis happens when the body loses bone faster than it can create it, and the process speeds up for many women after menopause. Sally had several risk factors she could never control. She was over 50, Caucasian, naturally small-framed, and had a family history of the disease. In fact, her grandmother Joy had suffered terribly from osteoporosis in her 90s. Sally remembered the painful image of her grandmother breaking her back just by sitting down on a bench. My grandmother Joy was in great pain the last years of her life, in her 90s because of a broken back, Sally recalled. Those memories now haunted her, making the diagnosis feel even more personal. Her doctor had been carefully monitoring her bone health for years, knowing she was at risk. But eventually the test showed her bone density had taken what the doctors described as a steep dive. Suddenly, the danger was no longer abstract. It became terrifyingly real during a simple moment with her grandchildren. I had a 5-year-old on my back and a 7-year-old in a wagon, pulling them up my steep driveway, she said. I realized I'm at risk. In that instant, she understood the reality. Even something as joyful as playing with her grandchildren could put her in danger. A small fall, or even lifting the kids, might leave her with a life-changing fracture. But true to her nature, Sally would not let osteoporosis define her. Instead, she began speaking openly about the disease, raising awareness and encouraging women everywhere to take bone health seriously before it was too late. This could have been a devastating turning point. The image of the unstoppable Sally Field could have been shattered, but that's not what happened. Instead of letting fear take over, she saw it as a new challenge to confront with the same grit and grace she had brought to her career. She wasn't just a patient, she was still a fighter. This wasn't the sad end of her vibrant life. It was the beginning of a new mission. Living with a chronic condition like osteoporosis means you have to be more aware of your body's limits and needs. For Sally Field, this new reality wasn't a sad, grueling chapter, but a challenge that required a new kind of vigilance. It wasn't about loss, but about adaptation and proactive strength. Instead of withdrawing, she recalibrated. She worked closely with her doctors, who determined that diet and exercise alone were no longer enough. She began a treatment plan that included medication to manage her bone health, a decision she made after research and consultation. This wasn't a blow to her identity. It was a smart, strategic way to stay strong and maintain her active lifestyle. The same woman who had the grit to portray the fierce and complex Mary Todd Lincoln in the film Lincoln, a role that earned her another Oscar nomination, was now using that same deep well of strength to manage her own health. This chapter of Sally Field's life also lined up with another bold and deeply personal decision: her choice to age naturally, even while working in an industry obsessed with youth and perfection. In Hollywood, where smooth skin and wrinkle-free faces often seem like the price of admission, Sally chose a different path. She spoke openly about it, making it clear she wasn't going to erase the history of her life from her face with plastic surgery. She once said with her usual honesty that, "I don't want to look old and worn, but what can you do? I care more about having the opportunity to play roles that I haven't played than I care if my neck looks like someone's bedroom curtains." It was a statement both funny and fearless, the kind of comment that revealed her humor and her strength at the same time. Her decision resonated with many people, especially women who felt the same pressures but lacked the platform to speak about them. To see a beloved actress stand tall against Hollywood's harsh beauty standards was empowering. It reminded people that aging is not something to be ashamed of. It is a natural part of living. But of course, courage comes with its costs. In the age of social media, where anyone can hide behind a screen, Sally became a target for cruel remarks. Anonymous trolls left hurtful comments about her appearance, mocking the lines on her face or the signs of age that she refused to hide. For many, that kind of constant criticism would have been crushing, but Sally refused to let it define her. Instead of retreating, she faced it with the same resilience she had shown throughout her entire life. Just as she confronted rejection in her early career, and just as she confronted the fear of osteoporosis, she met this new challenge head-on. When faced with a diagnosis that could have left her feeling isolated and defeated, the true spirit of Sally Field, the same fierce fighter we saw in Norma Ray, rose to the surface once again. Instead of retreating into private worry, she made a bold choice. She decided to take her personal battle and turn it into a public cause, transforming what could have been a story of quiet suffering into one of hope, awareness, and empowerment for millions of women. Sally was frustrated by how little people knew about osteoporosis and how often it was dismissed as just part of getting old. She realized that silence was one of the biggest dangers of the disease. So in 2006, she stepped into a new role, not just as an actress, but as an advocate. She partnered with the pharmaceutical companies Roche and GlaxoSmithKline to launch the nationwide campaign Rally with Sally for Bone Health. The goal was simple but urgent: to educate women about the risks of osteoporosis and encourage them to take action to protect themselves before it was too late. Sally used her fame and her voice to reach her own generation, the women who had grown up with her on screen. "Osteoporosis is a threat to women of my generation," she explained. "We've been activists throughout our lives. Today, the biggest hurdle we face is maintaining our health." Her message was clear and powerful. Osteoporosis is not just an unavoidable consequence of aging. It's a disease that can be detected, managed, and in some cases prevented. She urged women to get bone density tests, the very test that had revealed her own condition, and to take steps before fractures change their lives. To make it real, she shared her personal story with raw honesty. She admitted how much she had once taken her health for granted and how close she had come to serious danger. "I'm so vigorous, and I so take it for granted," she said. "If I had let it go just a few more years, I could have broken my hip or spine just picking up my granddaughter." Her openness struck a chord. By using her own life as an example, she gave osteoporosis a human face and reminded women everywhere that being proactive could mean the difference between independence and disability. Her advocacy didn't stop with public campaigns. She took her fight all the way to Capitol Hill, speaking before legislators in Washington, D.C. about the critical need for better prevention, screening, and treatment for the disease. She urged female members of Congress, many of whom were in the same at-risk age group, to prioritize their own health so they could be effective leaders and advocates for their constituents. She was no longer just an actress playing a union organizer. She was a real-life advocate, rallying women just like Norma Ray rallied her co-workers, empowering them to stand up and demand better for their health and their futures. As Sally Field moved into her 70s, her life became a masterclass in redefining strength and legacy. While managing her health is a part of her daily life, it hasn't defined her. Instead, her story has evolved into a profound narrative about authenticity, resilience, and unapologetically thriving. Her decision to age naturally is a cornerstone of her modern legacy. In a Hollywood culture fixated on freezing time, her choice was a quiet but powerful act of rebellion. "I'm an old woman. 70 is old, and that's okay," she said, embracing her age with a confidence that defied industry pressure. She acknowledges the demands of her profession, but her focus remains steadfastly on her craft, inspiring countless others to embrace their own aging journey with grace. In 2018, she gave the world an incredibly intimate look into her life with her memoir, In Pieces. The book was a raw and unflinchingly honest account of a life that was far more complex and painful than her sunny public image ever let on. She detailed a lonely childhood and revealed she had been SA'd by her stepfather, unpacking years of trauma and her long, difficult path toward healing and self-acceptance. It wasn't a sad story, but a survivor's story, about the courage it takes to examine the broken pieces of one's past and assemble them into a stronger, more authentic whole. This vulnerability has only deepened her legacy. Far from being sad or diminished, Field's career is as active and acclaimed as ever. She co-starred in the 2023 hit comedy 80 for Brady and delivered a powerful performance in the drama Spoiler Alert. That same year, she received the Screen Actors Guild Life Achievement Award, a testament to her enduring impact on the industry. Accepting the honor, she gave a moving speech celebrating a career of nearly 60 years, thrilling audiences by declaring, "Easy is overrated." Today she is politically engaged, active on social media, and continues to be a powerful voice for the causes she believes in. Her life is anything but a sad contrast to her past. It's a vibrant, triumphant continuation of it. So, what do you think about Sally Field and her struggles? Let us know down in the comments section. If you enjoyed this story of Sally Field, make sure to give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a deep dive into the stories behind Hollywood's most fascinating figures.